standing by for us. Mbali, what's the latest where you are?
Good afternoon, Nompu. We have heard what I can say is an explosive testimony from Francis Callard, which basically speaks of gross negligence on the part of Transnet executives who were dealing with this particular confinement. Now, he concluded his testimony about the 100 locomotives which were sourced from China South Rail. We've heard at length from various witnesses before the commission speaking about this confinement, which was originally meant to be a confinement for Mitsui for various reasons, which also included technicalities such as training train drivers and so on, and basically meeting the standards, South African standards, obviously railway standards, that is what I mean to say, and so on. And today we've heard of how, these things would change. So just to give you a bit of background, we remember that this was meant to be a Mitsui confinement, but 3 months later, and it was actually cancelled, and it was not approved by then CEO Brian Molefe. And then 3 months later, it was approved as a China South Rail confinement. However, when this document, which was first written by Francis Callard, was basically made, it was altered, and a few things just weren't altered. So it was altered in favor of China South Rail, and a few things were left behind, including the foreign exchange rate, which was left and later used as justification for a cost escalation of 1 billion rand. So the 100 locomotives would have cost something around 3 billion rand. But because of this small negligence, if I can call it that, the cost increased by 1 billion rand to around 4 billion rand, to over 4 billion rand. Now, we heard Judge Raymond Zondo exclaiming about this, saying, how is it that this carelessness was allowed when dealing with such a big contract and dealing with such large numbers in the billions? And basically, the commission does continue, and we're still going to be hearing more about the things that transpired at Transnet that relate to the state capture project. But for now, it's back to you in studio.
Mbali, very quickly, just break it down for the viewers. When you talk about confinement, what do you mean? That this deal was confined to Mitsui alone? Is that what you mean?
Okay, so a confinement is basically a process that is done in the event of an emergency or in the event of a sole provider. So it would mean that they would not go to the open market to get bidders and bidders to compete in order to get the particular contract. So it means that they would, because of the emergency situation, they would then decide that we are going to actually only bid to this particular company, be it Mitsui or China South Rail, and they would place their reasons for that. Sometimes it would be an emergency, which would be most of the time, and then on some cases it would be based on the relationship they had. Now, in the case of Mitsui, we heard Francis Callard talking about how they'd received locomotives from Mitsui, and they had a relationship with Mitsui, and because their train drivers were accustomed to the system and basically the technicalities of the train and driving it, they didn't need to train anyone. That was the reason they had decided to confine to Mitsui, and also because of an emergency situation that had arisen. However, 3 months later, he says the emergency was taken out and the confinement still went ahead. Ordinarily, this shouldn't have happened because it was no longer an emergency.
Okay, understood. Thanks very much for that, Mbali. That's our reporter, Mbelenhle Mthethwa, reporting from the state capture.